We're going to call this Health and Safety Sanitation Committee to order. The only thing on the agenda tonight is an update from our police chief on some of the things that he is going to be wanting to institute in his department. So, Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I submitted a request for council action to amend section 31.05 of the Salary and Benefits Code to add 3 patrol officers, so take the number from 29 to 32. And I requested to do this, one, if you recall, back when we took over Lafayette Township through the policing contract, we discussed adding 2 officers to accommodate that with the revenue that we received from that contract. That contract went into effect in 2018. We've received revenue every year since then, and that has not been appropriated into my budget, and we've conducted that, or we've satisfied that contract with our existing staff. So as discussed back when we were deliberating over that contract, I'd like to add those 2 officers, so I'd like to add that to the Salary and Benefits Code. In addition to that, we've recently begun accepting a grant through McDAC for our school resource officers. We have currently two school resource officers full-time. One works full-time in the high school, the other splits his time between Root Middle School and Claggett Middle School. Next year, we're going to add another school resource officer so that we can satisfy the needs of the school. They need a full-time school resource officer at Claggett. So we'll have a full-time school resource officer at the high school, full-time school resource officer at Claggett, and we'll have a full-time school resource officer at Root Middle School, who will also teach DARE in all of the elementary schools, as well as ALICE training throughout the district.
Okay.
To give you a brief background on the funding that we received from McDAC, in 2019, we received $33,000 from McDAC. In 2020, we received $94,000 from McDAC. In 2021, the McDAC committee just voted on the fiscal year 2021-22 grants, and we were approved for $259,000. That was approved by the McDAC committee. That still has to be approved by the commissioners and put forth. That's a significant amount of money. Over the past several years, for all of the McDAC revenue and all the Lafayette revenue, that brings us to a grand total of $883,000. Just a few months ago, we had an appropriation of $229,000. That's the only amount of that money that we've been appropriated into our budget. So we still have an outstanding total of $653,763 of the outside revenue that was brought in through that policing contract, as well as the McDAC grant that has not been used for any of the positions or equipment or anything to support those positions. So I'm respectfully requesting that we amend the Salary and Benefits Code to add the 3 additional officers, 2 for Lafayette and 1 for the school resource officer, to offset the 3rd school resource officer that we're placing en route for next school year.
Okay, and that you have put down a cost analysis sheet for the officers and the funding of the officers.
Yes, sir, with exception of the information I learned today. So the McDAC revenue estimate for 2022 listed in that cost analysis sheet is at 120 on that line. That should be edited to reflect 259,000, which was approved to us today. Again, that's under the assumption that the commissioners approve that recommendation from the McDAC board. So that would leave a total leftover after those positions are funded for 2022 of $308,986. So roughly $309,000 excess from all the revenue. So the 3 positions will be completely supported with outside revenue by either grants or the policing contract.
Okay. Now, just for the rest of the councils and myself, can you just go over again real quick when we started the coverage for Lafayette Township, And I do remember basically that you said that we may eventually need more officers than the department is supplying at this time, but you were going to wait until, to see how things have transpired. Can you just remind us, and that was in 2018 that we took them over?
Yes, sir. Monday, June 11th, 2000. Well, I'm sorry, that discussion occurred Monday, June 11th, 2018. We actually began the contract September of 2018.
Okay.
So to answer your question, during a finance committee on June 11, 2018, we did have a discussion, and it actually was upon approval of the contract, we would hire 2 extra officers. At the time, we were able to satisfy the contract with our existing staff.
Right. So it was approved to hire the 2 officers, we just never...
Yes, sir, that's correct. We never amended the salary and codes benefit,
Okay.
or salary and benefits code.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Mr. Lamb or Mr. Heffinger, do you have any questions?
So the, I get the resource officer for sure. I understand that. But I guess it's not totally clear to me on the 2 additional, like how is the coverage now in Lafayette Township with the number of officers that we have?
We're able to do it, but as you're well aware, I'm sure, that Lafayette Township's growing substantially. And the whole idea of having the policing contract was that it would be a benefit to us as well as the township. So I think by enhancing our service by the extra 2 officers, we can provide a better service with the additional staff.
Can we provide a service that keeps us in compliance with the contract without adding 2 officers?
We do. Currently, yes.
Can we, going forward, do that without the 2 additional officers?
If we're straining ourselves, yes, we could. But I guess that's why when we discussed the implementation of that contract, a condition was that we add 2 additional officers. So we ran it without those 2 additional officers up until this point where I've made a determination that I'd like to have those 2 additional officers to address the calls for service, the growth, and essentially to enhance the service that we can provide both the Lafayette Township and the city of Medina.
Mayor Hanwell?
Unless you have other questions first.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
So I think the main thing is it's close to 360,000, and the 2 officers are more in line even in the latter years with 280, 290,000. So we're still well below what the revenue being brought in is. And I can tell you, listening to the scanner day in and day out, when I'm in the office and many times on the weekends or evenings, there are times today where calls, we don't have an officer to respond to a call. Now we then prioritize, they then prioritize so that the non-emergency calls are held and the emergency calls are handled, and then we get back to those. But as our staff get more tenure, they get more vacation time, and we have training time that we have to replace people on. We have sick time we have to replace people on. And with the available resources, this, in my mind, as a safety director, makes the most sense.
Eric?
So we have an officer now in Lafayette Township.
No.
We have 1.
How we have this arranged is we have a zone, the southwest sector of the city, which is comprised of west of South Court Street, south of West Smith, and that officer is in that sector, which includes all of Lafayette Township as well. So that officer floats back and forth. If the need arises in Lafayette Township where they need more than 1 officer, then we draw another officer from the city to go assist that officer in Lafayette Township, and vice versa. If that officer is in Lafayette Township and we have a need in the city, that officer will come up into a different quadrant of the city to address whatever that need is.
Oh, okay, so when you gave the directions of where the cutoff is, city and township, So is that officer part in the city as well as part in the township?
Yes, sir. He floats back and forth.
Okay, so is the mayor saying that there's a lot of calls and there was a lot of, to cover all the calls back and forth? So what you're saying is you really, since we are doing Lafayette Township, you could more efficiently ensure the coverage in the city and in the township, I guess, with the additional 2 officers?
Yes, sir.
That's the kind of the linchpin of what you're looking to improve on.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing that I think that we should remember is that the chief brought up, Lafayette Township is residentially expanding. And I know that between Montville and Lafayette, when the proposed roundabout, if it does happen, but it sounds like it's pretty much going to happen there at 162 and Route 3. The last I heard, it was supposed to be over 1,000 new homes between a couple developments going on in between Montville and Lafayette Township, so.
They are still going to put that roundabout in, correct? Is that?
Yes, yes, sir,
okay.
that's supposed
It
to.
looked like they stopped working, I thought.
They were doing the paving and that first,
Okay.
but that's going to happen yet this fall.
Okay.
We got some other council members in the audience. Do you have any questions or comments? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at this, and it's my personal opinion that adding 2 new officers not only will help with the coverage and things like that, but also help reduce the overtime, which will reduce the amount of tiredness we're going to have on the road with our police officers, which will help with the decision-making should the bad situation come up. So I think this is a win-win-win situation all around. And looking at the numbers, the 2 grants that we have coming, or the revenue that we have coming in from the 2 sources here, McDack and Lafayette Revenue, more than covers this for the 5 years here that are enumerated. So I would vote for it if it were put before me.
And it should be noted that when we first started discussing the revenue from the levy, I think we're estimating just under $300,000. And in 2020, it brought in $391,000. That was the total revenue just for the Lafayette contract. So it's substantially higher than what we were originally estimating.
John, do you have any?
Yeah, no, I think the resource officer I guess I'm a little concerned about the 2 officers in Lafayette. I'm not sure what the new sheriff is going to do because he can, there could be a change because there's a new sheriff. And also, I don't believe we need 2 officers right now. I think that we're raising the money, which is fine. I think we should be more fiscally conservative and responsible. I think the safety issue is an issue in the future, not now. I think we're doing a great job, as the mayor mentioned before, about a year ago, that we're doing a great job in Lafayette. And I think we can continue to do a great job in Lafayette. I think maybe we should hold off on 2. I mean, if we're looking at 1, maybe later on and stagger them in. I don't think we should jump to 2. We used to have 43 officers in the city of Medina. Now we have 39 total. And there's a reason for that. We provide a great service with 39. I mean, you could provide a great service with 90. Why don't we have 90 officers? That would be the best service ever, because then it would be, the ratio would be a lot better. It would be, like 400 to 1 or maybe less. So I just don't, I don't think it's, I'm not for 2 right now. I just don't think it's necessary.
Comments?
I've had conversations with the trustees, and they're perfectly satisfied with the service we're providing and have no intention of changing back to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
And I don't want 90 officers, just 42.
Jess, do you have any questions or comments?
I never
Well-
have to turn my mic on because I'm always loud enough. No, I do not have any questions. I defer to Chief Kinney's judgment on this, so.
Well, as John said, I am glad that we're addressing the school resource officers and starting back up the DARE program. I know the DARE program over the years has been controversial as far as does it help with teaching kids about drug use or not. I do believe it does, but more important than that, the working with the officers, feeling comfortable with the officers. I know when my kids were younger, you know, and I can't remember who the officers were that was doing that. I think one of them was Mary.
Scott Thomas?
Scott Thomas, you know, when we'd see him at the store or something, I mean, they knew him by Officer Thomas, and, you know, it was just, I felt that was invaluable, and I was sorry to see us lose that program, so I'm glad that we're bringing that back. And I do understand you know, I mean, I understand what President Coyne is saying, that we could get by with the number of officers that we have now. But I think you've made a good presentation, and more importantly, it does show that even though we could save that money and use it in other areas of the police department, I liked how you stated that if the funding dries up, that we could eliminate some of these positions. So I would support it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Bill?
I think I have both. So the issue with the sheriff's department is simply, as long as we have good service, Lafayette agrees to stay with us. As long as they perceive that the service they're getting is good. It's not a question of the sheriff saying, I'm going to take over this township, the safety in this township.
Yes, sir, it's the prerogative of the trustees. It's discretionary on their
So
part.
correct on that. And to the President Council's point, how would you feel about if you hired one now and hired one first and then saw how that was and waited to hire number two? What's your response to that?
Well, I'd prefer to hire based on the agreement that we had when it was passed at finance, that we were to hire two. That was what the agreement was. That was what I articulated for the passage of it at finance and council back in 2018. I think I've shown fiscal restraint by trying to conduct our business there and satisfy the contract with our existing staff. So for 3 years I have, and I've shown fiscal restraint and responsibility, and I'd just like to add the two at this time now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I totally agree with you, Denny, about the DARE program, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
The only other question I have, and I was going to bring your yearly report up with me, as the mayor mentioned through the dispatch, they prioritize the calls, but it seems like more and more often, I wouldn't say the majority, but a large percentage of the calls, it seems like it would require two officers for safety reasons, not only for the police officer, but for the residents that are they're responding to. So, and I'm supporting this more, you know, not so much for Lafayette Township, but if we have the extra officers, maybe we're not going to be, if there is more officers requested on a particular call, depleting the city of the patrol officers to go to Lafayette. So I like the idea of having, you know, two extra officers.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
And we've been at 39 officers for many, many years, and that was prior to taking on the Lafayette contract. At one time in the early 2000s, we were up to, I think the highest we were at were 43. I'm not sure, or I'm sorry, 42. I don't think we were ever at 43. And then we had the layoffs, and we've never really regained that full strength since then. I'd also like to point out that I track our monthly cash balance, our revenues inside our 106 fund. And since I've taken over back in 2017, we've shown a steady increase over these years in our cash balance. And it's because of these reserves that are building up. And if I do see that to trend in the opposite direction or start trending down, obviously I'll make adjustments to correct that.
Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When does this current contract end, Chief?
2020, the end of 2022, I believe.
End of 2022, okay. Because I'm looking at the estimated cost of the officers and the estimated revenue. When we renegotiate this, is there possible that we can have the Inflation adjuster kind of more match the way the wages are increasing? Because we're definitely spending more than, we're coming to zero here based on these projections.
Well, again, these projections were based on a different amount, like you said. These are estimates. In 2020, we brought in 391,000. These are based on estimates of 263, 266. So we may get substantially more than that. And as the township grows, it'll increase as well.
Okay, so it's
But-
based on their property tax?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay,
sir.
all right.
So, but to answer your question, this is a full pass-through on the levy. So for them to get an increase in that, obviously, they'd have to go back to the voters and ask for an increase. And they have expressed that willingness if the need arises.
Okay, all right, so the property owners pay the property taxes for the police service, and we get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a direct pass-through to us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Gentlemen, anything?
On the property tax, because it came up, and I just want to clarify something. It comes up a lot in discussion that you don't get inflation on property taxes. So if property values go up just because of inflation, the effective millage is reduced to balance that out. However, you do get increases for new construction. That hasn't been as much of a factor in the city here because we're pretty much to build out, so over the last number of years. But the township in Lafayette, they're building new housing and so on. That new housing will increase the amount of the levy that comes in. As long as those houses are being built, we will bring in more money on that levy because, as Chief explained, it's a direct pass-through is the way that contract works. So if they build, 50 new houses and that results in an extra $20,000 in tax, we just get an extra $20,000. Just to understand how property tax works.
Thank you.
Mayor or Chief, any other comments? Anything else from anybody in the audience? Okay, I'm going to recommend, take a vote on the committee here to amend 3105, with the additional 3 officers for the police department. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it passes. We will pass this along to finance. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your effort there. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This meeting's adjourned.